The gym smelled like iron and sweat. Los Angeles, 1964. A private training space tucked away from the noise of the city, where men came to test their bodies and validate their beliefs. The air was thick, not just with heat, but with something heavier. Ego. Bruce Lee stood near the wall, arms folded, watching. He wasn't large. 5'7". 135 pounds. His frame was lean, compact, built for speed rather than spectacle. He had been invited here, though not warmly. Word had spread about him. The Chinese kid teaching something called Jeet Kune Do. A hybrid. A departure. Some called it revolutionary. Others called it arrogance. Across the room, a man twice his size adjusted his grip on a barbell. His name was Carl. 6'3". 230 pounds. A powerlifter. A boxer in his youth. His arms were thick as most men's legs. His shoulders filled doorways. He had been training for 15 years, perfected his craft in sweat and pain, and carried the quiet certainty of someone who had never been proven wrong by a smaller man. Carl set the barbell down. The sound echoed. He looked at Bruce, not with malice, but with something colder. Dismissal. "So you're the guy," Carl said. His voice was deep, slow, like he had all the time in the world. Bruce didn't respond immediately. He was used to this. The look. The tone. The assumption. "I'm Bruce," he said simply. Carl wiped his hands on a towel and walked closer. Not aggressive. Just present. He stopped a few feet away and tilted his head slightly, sizing him up the way someone might examine a sculpture they didn't understand. "I've heard about your style," Carl said. "Jeet Kune Do. No forms. No tradition. Just, whatever works." He said it like it was a punchline. Bruce nodded. "That's right." Carl smiled, but it wasn't warm. "Kung Fu," he said, letting the word hang in the air. "It's fake." The room went quiet. A few other men had been training nearby. They stopped. Weights rested on benches. Conversations died. Everyone turned. Bruce didn't flinch. He didn't raise his voice. He just looked at Carl the way a teacher looks at a student who hasn't done the reading. "Why do you think that?" Bruce asked. Carl shrugged. "Because it's dance. It's performance. I've seen the movies. I've seen the demonstrations. Lot of noise. Lot of movement. But when it comes down to it, in a real fight, size wins. Strength wins. Kung Fu doesn't stop a punch from someone like me." Bruce let the words settle. He could have argued. He could have lectured. But he knew better. Words didn't change minds. Only experience did. "You believe that," Bruce said. Not a question. A statement. "I know it," Carl replied. Bruce uncrossed his arms. He stepped forward, slowly, closing the space between them. The air shifted. Not because Bruce was trying to intimidate, but because he had decided something. "Would you like to test it?" Bruce asked. Carl's smile widened. "You serious?" "Completely." Carl looked around. The other men were watching now, some leaning against machines, others standing with arms crossed. This wasn't a scheduled event. It was spontaneous. Raw. The kind of moment that gets remembered. "All right," Carl said. "But I'm not going easy." "I wouldn't want you to," Bruce replied. They moved to the center of the room. No mats. Just concrete floor. No referee. No rules. Just two men and their beliefs. Carl took his stance. A boxer's guard. Hands up, elbows tucked, weight on the balls of his feet. He had done this 1,000 times. His body knew the rhythm. Jab, cross, hook. Distance, timing, power. He was a wall. And walls didn't move. Bruce stood differently. His stance was narrower, more upright. His lead hand was extended, fingertips loose, almost relaxed. His rear hand hovered near his ribs. He looked open. Vulnerable. Like he was inviting an attack. Carl saw it. An opportunity. He stepped forward and threw a jab. Fast. Not a test. A real punch aimed at Bruce's face. It never landed. Bruce moved. Not backward. Sideways. A slight shift of his head, a rotation of his torso, and the punch passed through empty air. Before Carl could reset, Bruce's lead hand flicked out. A finger jab. Not hard. Just enough. It touched Carl's eye, pulling back before damage, but the message was clear. Carl blinked. Stepped back. Reset. He threw again. This time a combination. Jab, cross. More committed. More aggressive. Bruce slipped both. His body moved like water finding a gap. He didn't block. He redirected. His hand brushed Carl's wrist mid-punch, altering the trajectory just enough. Carl's power went into nothing. And then Bruce countered. A side kick. Low. Fast. It snapped into Carl's lead thigh. The impact was sharp, precise. Carl's leg buckled slightly. Not enough to drop him, but enough to disrupt his base. Carl tried to close the distance. He lunged forward, attempting to use his size, his reach, his weight. But Bruce wasn't there. He had already moved. Circled. Angled off. Another strike. This time to the ribs. A short, penetrating punch. Carl felt it. Deep. His breath caught. He swung. A wide hook. Desperate now. Bruce ducked under it, smooth, effortless. As Carl's arm passed over, Bruce rose and delivered a straight punch to the solar plexus. Not full power. Controlled. But Carl felt the air leave his lungs. He staggered. His guard dropped. His confidence cracked. Bruce stepped back. He didn't press. Didn't gloat. He just stood there, calm, waiting. Carl tried to breathe. His chest heaved. His body, so strong, so conditioned, suddenly felt heavy. He looked at Bruce, and for the first time, he didn't see a smaller man. He saw someone who understood something he didn't. You done? Bruce asked quietly. Carl nodded. He couldn't speak. The room was silent. 10 men had watched. 10 witnesses. No one said a word. Bruce walked over to the wall and picked up a towel. He handed it to Carl. Strength matters, Bruce said. But only if you can apply it. You're strong. Incredibly strong. But strength without adaptability is just resistance waiting to be bypassed. Carl wiped his face. He was still catching his breath. You moved, like you knew what I was going to do, Carl said. I didn't, Bruce replied. I just didn't commit to one response. You telegraph. Your body prepares before your punch. Your weight shifts. Your shoulder tenses. You're strong, but you're rigid. Rigidity is predictable. Carl looked down at his hands. Hands that had lifted hundreds of pounds. Hands that had won fights. Hands that, moments ago, couldn't touch a man half his size. So what do I do? Carl asked. Bruce sat down on a bench. He motioned for Carl to sit beside him. You stop thinking of fighting as opposition, Bruce said. You see it as force against force. My punch versus your block. My size versus your size. But fighting isn't about opposing. It's about harmonizing. When you punch, I don't meet it. I go with it. I use your energy. You're trying to impose your will. I'm trying to flow with reality. Carl listened. Really listened. Kung Fu isn't fake, Bruce continued. But a lot of what people call Kung Fu is the flashy stuff. The forms that look good but don't work. That's theater. But the principle underneath it, the philosophy, that's real. It's about becoming formless. Adaptable. Like water. You can't hit water. You can't break it. It just moves. Carl nodded slowly. So you're saying I need to let go? I'm saying you need to stop holding on so tight, Bruce said. To your style. To your identity as a strong man. Strength is a tool. But if it's the only tool, you're limited. One of the other men in the gym, a trainer named Mike, stepped forward. He had been silent the whole time. I've been teaching boxing for 20 years, Mike said. And I've never seen anyone move like that. Bruce looked at him. Boxing is effective. One of the most effective systems. But it's still a system. And every system has gaps. So what's your system? Mike asked. Bruce smiled faintly. I don't have one. That's the point. The conversation continued for a while. The other men asked questions. About technique. About philosophy. About how someone so small could dismantle someone so large. Bruce answered patiently, never condescending, never boasting. He spoke like someone sharing a map, not selling a destination. Carl sat quietly for most of it. He wasn't angry. He wasn't embarrassed. He was thinking. Eventually, the gym emptied. People went back to their routines. Bruce gathered his things and prepared to leave. Carl approached him one last time. Thanks, Carl said. Bruce looked at him, surprised. For what? For not humiliating me, Carl said. You could have. But you didn't. Bruce shook his head. That wasn't the point. I'm not here to prove you wrong. I'm here to show you there's more. Carl extended his hand. Bruce shook it. Maybe I'll come train with you sometime, Carl said. You're welcome anytime, Bruce replied. Bruce walked out into the late afternoon sun. Los Angeles stretched out before him, loud and indifferent. But in that small gym, something had shifted. Not just in Carl, but in everyone who watched. They had seen a belief shatter. Not violently, but completely. They had seen strength humbled. Not by greater strength, but by understanding. And for Bruce, that was the only victory that mattered. He didn't need to be the strongest. He didn't need to be the biggest. He just needed to be awake. Present. Adaptive. The world was full of rigid men. Men who built themselves into fortresses and then wondered why they couldn't move. Bruce had learned long ago that fortresses fall. But water flows forever. He walked down the street, disappearing into the crowd, leaving behind a story that 10 men would carry for the rest of their lives. A story about the day Kung Fu stopped being fake. Not because it won, but because it simply was.